My name is Usha Venkatraman. I'm the founder of Mumbai Storytellers Society living in Mumbai, India. I'm a classical vocalist, a self taught puppeteer, and I love telling multicultural folk tales. My story is a folk tale from Bengal. I heard this story from a British storyteller, Peter Chand, in 2012 in Singapore. I believe there is a version of the same story in Kerala from South India. The mysterious oils. मेहंदी है रचने वाली हाथों में गहरी लाली हाँ सखियां अब कलियां हाथों में खिलने वाली है मेरे मन को जीवन को नई खुशियां मिलने वाली है ओ हरियाली बनो ले जाने तुझको गुइया आने वाले हैं सैया थामेंगे आके बैया गूंजेगी शहनाई अंगनाई अंगनाई बन्नो. The wedding had just taken place. The young bride, with rings on her fingers and bells on her toes, was gazing into her husband's warm brown eyes. She was stroking his cheeks and whispering sweet nothings. They had such fondness for each other. You could make out they were in love. And this idyll lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. And then reality kicked in. The young bride had to meet her mother in law. When she entered the threshold of her mother in law's house, the temperature dipped in by a couple of degrees. You could feel the iciness in the air. Maybe the mother in law didn't like the look of her daughter in law because she wasn't her choice. But the young bride wanted to please her mother in law. And it's usually the custom in West Bengal, where this story comes from, that until the henna in your hands fade away, the young bride is not put to work. But not in this house. She was set to work right away. Polishing, cleaning, dusting, cooking, washing, sweeping. She didn't mind. The young bride wanted to please her mother in law and earn a good name. But when you have somebody constantly looking over your shoulder, dogging your footsteps, and looking at you censoriously, you tend to make mistakes. You become clumsy and silly, and that's exactly what happened. One day, the young bride was washing her husband's shirt in the bathroom when her mother in law stood outside with her customary pose, hands on the hips, her inimical stare, and said, "Girl, May, hasn't your mother taught you anything at all? Kichu shikaini. In this house, we wash the cuffs first, not the collar. Oh, Shashuma, oh, Shashuma, I'll do exactly as you tell me." And she set about scrubbing the cuffs. The next day, as the young bride was cooking in the kitchen and stirring the pot of fish curry, her mother in law stood right there behind her and, with the same posturing, said, "Oh, look at you, girl. Looks like your mother hasn't taught you anything at all. In this house, we stir the pot anti-clockwise, not clockwise." Oh, Shashuma, oh, Shashuma, I'll do exactly as you please. I will stir it anti-clockwise. And she set about doing that. And this continued For many days, the mother-in-law would pick on every small little thing, and the young bride would agree and do as she was asked or told. And every night, the young bride cried herself to sleep. Now, she could have shared her problems with her husband, but she knew that her husband was already on thin ice with his mother. Things were not going very well for them. And she looked at her husband's supine form, sleeping the sleep of the innocent, while she cried herself to sleep. The next day, the young bride was sweeping the yard, the front yard, when her mother-in-law, the proverbial monster-in-law, stood there and said, "Look at you, girl. Did I not tell you that you must match the angle of the branch of the peepal tree? Your broom should match the angle." Shashuma, Shashuma, I did exactly as you told me, but you see, there is a breeze blowing and the branches are moving. Oh, don't sass me, girl. Don't give me any lip. I won't stand for it. No lip. And the young bride had reached a point of no return. She dropped her broom and rushed out of the house to the woods. And she stopped. She wrapped her thin cotton sari around her trembling, slight form and took a deep breath and then picked up pace. She began to walk deeper into the woods and she rounded the corner where the old banyan tree with the aerial roots stood and then picked herself across the stream and went to the other side where she could smell the oils wafting through the dusky evening. And she saw the wise old woman with the essential oils: bergamot, clary sage, frankincense, eucalyptus, vanilla, lemongrass. The smell was redolent with all the essential oils. And she told the old wise woman, "My mother in law has to go. Give me something to take away the pain. I can't take it anymore. Please." And the wise woman smiled and said, "Girl, can you massage your mother in law's bones?" "Yes, I will," said the young bride. So the old woman mixed and blended some essential oils and filled up a bottle and capped it and gave it to the young girl and said, "Here, take this oil and massage it into your mother in law's bones. And remember, when the oil in the bottle disappears, so will all your troubles." The young bride thanked the wise woman, thrust a 10-rupee note into her hand, and rushed back home. As soon as she reached her house, she asked her mother in law, "Sashuma, Shashuma, would you like a massage?" And before you could say Mishti Dui, her mother in law had laid herself flat on the bed, loosened her sari, unbuttoned her blouse, and lay flat on the stomach and said, "Right there at the base of my spine, massage me." The young bride took some oil in her hands, rubbed them together, and let's take a pause and remember the times that a masseur or a masseuse has massaged us. I remember going to the spa 3 months back, but I still remember the gentle strokes, but not here. The young bride took the oil and slapped her fingers, her hands onto her mother in law's back and began to knead the flesh angrily, pushing it, pulling it, cupping it, wringing it, rolling the flesh, and not a word of complaint, not a whimper of pain from her mother in law. All the anger, the frustration just went down from her shoulders to her elbows, and from there on to her wrists and the fingers. And the next day, after the young bride had finished all her chores, she asked her mother in law, Shashuma, would you like a massage? And before you could say Mishti Dui, her mother in law was flat on the bed, loosened her sari, unbuttoned the blouse, and said right there on my shoulder blades. And the young bride took the oil in her hands, and you know what she did? Slapped her hands onto the mother in law's shoulder, kneading the flesh angrily, rubbing it, pushing it, rolling it, wringing it. Not a word of complaint, not a whimper of pain or protest. This continued for a few days, a couple of weeks. And one day, unbeknownst to the young bride, the temperature warmed up in the house. The atmosphere lightened. And with no will of her own, the young bride's shoulders, her arms, elbows relaxed, and the contours of her fingers matched the contours of her mother in law's back, and the arch of her hands matched the arch of her mother in law's back, and the massage became a gentle stroke and a gentle exercise, a therapeutic stroking and a massage. And the two women began to talk. And the mother in law said, you know, girl, I love my son. You see, I have a constant nagging pain at the base of my spine. That's why I'm always in a foul temper. And the young bride said, yes, Shashuma, I too love your son. I miss my parents. I miss my siblings. And the two women began to talk. They opened their hearts. They shared their deepest emotions. And suddenly, one day, the young bride looked up and she saw there was just a drop of oil left in the bottle. She quickly excused herself and rushed to the woods, and she stopped. She wrapped her thin cotton sari around her trembling, slight form and took a deep breath, and then quickened her pace and rounded the corner in the woods where the old banyan tree with the aerial roots stood, and picked her way carefully across the stream and reached the wise old woman with the oils. And she said, please, Ma, take back the poison that's in the bottle. Please, please reverse the magic in the bottle. I love my mother in law. I don't want her to die. Please. And the wise old woman smiled and said, child, I can't take back. Whatever is there in the bottle is there. But who told you there was poison in the bottle? The only ingredient in that bottle was time. Did I not tell you, child? When the oil in the bottle disappears, so will all your troubles. All you needed was time to talk to each other. The young bride beamed with a happy smile, thanked the old woman, and paid for another bottle of essential oils, picked it up, and with her raven black hair swinging over her shoulders and her sari flowing in the wind, with her spring in her steps and a smile and a song in her lips, she skipped all the way home to her waiting mother-in-law. आकी चली झाकी चली आ आ आ आ आ आ आ पंतबते तख्त बेगुन पोड़ा हो पंतबते तख्त बेगुन पोड़ा. Thank you.